Oh my goodness, I just realized my microphone was muted. Technology. Well, welcome if you've been here for the last 3 minutes while I've been on mute. Sorry about that. But we are talking all about vision boards this morning. And when you are at the place where your energy is already low, why hearing the term vision board or goal setting, especially at this time of January where we feel like we're at the 54th day of January, why that might feel somewhat frustrating to you, why it might sound like, why, who has time to actually do these exercises? Who has time to actually think about putting pictures onto a board? What does that even mean? Why is it helpful? And if you are feeling like that, then continue listening because I want to share some assumptions about, if we are asking ourselves, let's create a vision for this year or the next 5 years or the next 10 years. To be able to have the space and capacity to think about that, you have to, one, have it, but then you have to be able to think beyond the immediate demands of your day to day. I've had a lot of great conversations this week with individuals who have been DMing me about this is too overwhelming based on what's going on in my life or my work. This is too overwhelming in the face of a wild job search that I have been applying and applying and applying and only hearing rejections back from. This is too overwhelming in the face of I don't even have enough capacity to take care of my current responsibilities, let alone the mental space to actually think about what I really want. And so to be able to create a vision board, we have to have the space, the time, and the energy to do so. We also need to feel safe doing it. We have to feel like this is an exciting thing and that we can trust ourselves, that we really know what we want in our life. Trust that we already have everything that we need. Everything that we need is already within us to be able to reach those big goals and dreams that maybe you haven't thought about in a while. Maybe you've been putting them on the shelf, like next year will be less busy, or summer will be less busy, or I'll get to those things eventually. But what happens in this state where you don't have enough capacity or space to really think about what you want is your brain shuts off that area where you can think about possibility. You can open yourself up to receiving. You can open yourself up to abundance. You can open yourself up to opportunities that feel totally out of reach right now because your brain is so focused on really just getting through the day. And so sometimes I think when we consider, like, if we're going to map out our vision in some format, whether that is electronic or if you made a physical vision board this year, sometimes when we think about even doing that exercise, we feel worse. We feel guilty for taking the time to do something like this. We feel that everything that we're going to put on that board is too far out of reach. And so if that is how you feel about creating big goals for yourself, or if that is how you feel about putting something onto a vision board, then you are in a state of protecting yourself. You're in a state of what's comfortable. You're in a state of security. Because the thought of making big changes puts ourselves into a fearful state. Right? It's scary to make a change. It's scary to have an unknown come up. It's scary to have an uncertainty or an open loop of, well, what if this doesn't work out? But I remember last year being at a conference and talking with a colleague about the possibilities in her world. And at that time, she was sharing all the things about, well, what if this happens? And what if this goes wrong? And, what if it doesn't work out? Or what if I think that they want to offer me this opportunity, but I don't know that they really want me. Maybe they want somebody else. And for probably 10 minutes, I just listened to what she was sharing. And at the end of when she stopped talking, I asked, have you ever considered the point of what if it all works out? And what if it all works out beyond what you think is possible right now? And she just stared at me for a solid probably 30 seconds And she finally said, I haven't even considered what if it works out. She hadn't even thought to stop and think about what could be possible. What if the opposite were true? So our brain will continue to serve us up all of these negative constructs, especially if we're operating from a place where our energy is stretched so thin, our brain capacity doesn't have any room to dream about these possibilities. And it's hard for us to even see, like, what is our long-term goal? So in fact, instead of feeling inspired by doing these exercises, we probably feel empty. We probably feel numb, or we probably get stuck in this paralysis of, well, what could I even possibly do that's different than just trying to get through my day to day? And I'm just here to share this morning, this is just a lack of capacity. This is a lack of mental capacity, of physical capacity. You are probably running day to day, all day, but likely on autopilot. So you don't need another planner. You don't need another affirmation on the wall. What you need is some time and space to think about what you really want. What do you really want in the future? And I know that question itself can feel so overwhelming. So I want to break it down to a few different questions that we can ask ourselves to think about where we can build that capacity in. Because you might think, okay, Jackie, like I'm from when I wake up in the morning until when I hit the bed at night, I am going, I am doing all the things. And I get it. I hear you. But when will you make thought about how could you approach this differently? How could you build in that space? So what feels unsustainable right now? What have you taken on in your professional life, your personal life? What feels like, oh, if I keep doing this over and over again for months, years, I don't know if I can keep this up. What is draining your energy? What's taking more from you than what it's giving you? And on the flip side, what gives you energy? Doing an audit of your day and really identifying where your energy is going is something that I love doing with individuals because I think it elucidates so much. One, the work that you're meant to do, but also that work that is taking energy from you. And if you have just time for one question this week, I'll ask, what would make this week feel slightly easier as we're moving into the weekend? Look at next week and say, what would be the one thing, just one thing that would make this week feel easier ahead? These questions will tie you into that safety of thinking about making a change. They'll ground you to say, okay, where am I at today? Knowing that wherever you're starting from is the right place. And how could I make next week feel slightly easier? So it doesn't have to be a vision board. It can be. I would love to see yours if you have one. If you have created one that's electronic or paper, send me a picture of it. I would love to see what's on it for you. But also, when you give yourself permission to take a rest, to give yourself some intentional, thoughtful introspection, this is where that vision comes to light. This is where you can start to build that space and capacity to be able to create that answer to what do I really want for my life? And I hope that if you're feeling any resistance to that sort of work of, okay, we don't have time for this. We don't have time for it, right? I hope if you're having any feelings of resistance to that you listen to that information. You listen to the thoughts that come up for you when someone asks you, what are your big goals for 2026? What's on your vision board? Because I think it's worth us asking what we need, especially in healthcare. We are givers, right? We give to people in our lives, in our professional lives. It's in our nature. It's how we're built. But I'd love to think about, when's the last time that you gave to yourself? And I want to thank you for giving me your time today. I look forward to seeing you next week.